So again, welcome everybody. We would like to start this meeting with the Girl Scout Promise and Law, as we should start all of our Girl Scout meetings. So I will lead. You can stay muted so that we're not talking over everybody. I'm sure that those of you who have joined Girl Scout meetings virtually have had that experience of trying to do the Promise and Law together. Virtually is sometimes a little difficult. So I will lead though. On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, to help peoples at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout law. I will do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong, responsible for what I say and do, respect myself and others, respect authority, use resources wisely, make the world a better place, and be a sister to every Girl Scout. Couple of housekeeping rules. I see everybody is muted. Thank you very much for that. Please feel free, if you have a question as Cassie is presenting, to unmute and ask your question or place it in the chat box. I'll be monitoring the chat box to make sure that if there are any questions there that they get asked. And you can also raise your hand because I can see everybody and we'll know if you raise your hand also. In order to, if you want to see Cassie speaking while you're also seeing the slides, the best way to do that is on the view, choose the speaker view option. And that'll make Cassie in a square, or it's not called speaker view. What is it called? It's called show small active speaker video. And that'll show Cassie in the small window with the slides full screen. And so I am very happy to have Cassie join us. Cassie is from Cashton. And so we have a hometown person leading us tonight, and we're very excited about that. So take it away, Cassie.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for spending your Friday evening with me. I know scheduling can be kind of challenging in this particular range and trying to get everything to mix together. So I'm glad you're all here. We are going to go through, I promise you it will not be death by slides, but I do have some information and things to share with you via that media, but I do want this to be very, very interactive. So, you know, please be ready to answer questions and share what you're seeing with your particular scholarship applications so that I can speak directly to those particular issues and concerns that you're having as we walk through the material. So at a high level, what are we going to do tonight? What can you expect? We're going to start with introductions. And I do have some particular things that I am looking for in those introductions. So if you have the ability and are willing, it would be wonderful if you could turn your camera on when you do your introduction. If you don't and just want to come off mute, that's okay too. So I see 4 participants here. So it's a small, intimate group that we can definitely get to know each other a little bit better and help each other work through this process. After the introductions, there are 4 top reasons why students don't get scholarships and some ideas on how to avoid those 4 things that I see happening most often. And then we're going to go a little bit deeper into the details behind that. We'll talk about your personal statement. We'll talk about how scholarships are evaluated. We'll dig into the essay. A lot of that essay is going to be built out of the things that we talked to in the previous 2 pieces. So they're really important assets to that. References, a lot of scholarships ask for references, not all of them do. So in the event that you do have one that asks for references, some tips and tricks on how to get a good reference. I have had references actually hurt the applicant. So you want to be careful with that as well. And then finalizing up with just some other things that I am interested in participating in and ways that I can help you as you kind of move forward into your journey with your career. So we'll start with my introduction. From an education perspective, I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry from Viterbo University. It became Viterbo University actually the semester that I graduated. What used to be a Viterbo college, and a master's in industrial engineering from Arizona State University. Now, with that, I'll tell you that back in the day when I went to Viterbo, it was $12,000 a year in tuition alone, not including room and board. So right around a $50,000 education in the 90s. One of the more expensive educations in the area at that time. And Arizona State is a Big Ten school. So it's, right up there with that tuition base. My student loan balance for both of those degrees was $12,000. So primarily with my undergraduate, it was scholarships. With my master's program, it was education reimbursement through my employer. So there's a lot of ways as you progress through your career to make sure that that education is getting paid for. Today, I am a global operations quality manager for Rockwell Automation. They are headquartered in Milwaukee. So I am currently sitting in Reedstown, Wisconsin, about maybe 30 miles away from Cashton. But my office technically is in Milwaukee, and I have responsibility for 17 manufacturing facilities around the globe and their quality, particularly around one of their more predominant product lines. So very active in a lot of different countries and cultures. I'm also an early career mentor for them. I have had several interns and early career rotational program members that have worked for me. I'm very active in their recruiting program. I participate in recruiting at national career fairs like the Society of Women Engineers, NSBE, things like that, as well as on campus recruiting that I participate in. And I've been actually on the selection committee for a couple of different national associations. The American Society of Quality, I participate in the chapter selections for both the La Crosse and Madison chapters. And then the Society of Women Engineers, they're an international organization. They have two separate scholarships that I'm on the selection committees for, upper class and freshmen, fall into two separate buckets. Last year, they provided 260 scholarships totaling over $1 million. So it's a pretty big pool of candidates that we're working with in that particular organization. And then I also am on the scholarship committee for the Wisconsin chapter of the Society of Women Engineers. A couple other things that I do to hang out in the spare time that I don't have. I am a women in STEM mentor for both UW-Platteville and UW-Marquette, working very, very closely, particularly with their women in engineering programs. And I'm a member of the Badgerland Girl Scouts Highest Award Committee, and I am actually a Gold Award Girl Scout if you go back a couple of decades. So that's kind of my background. I do spend a lot of time working with folks in your age category as they're just kind of breaking into that career realm. And so I'm really excited to be here with you tonight to share a lot of the information that I've gathered over several years of working in this space. So that's me in a nutshell. I would like to have each of you introduce yourselves. What I'm looking for is, what's your name? What major or field of study are you planning to pursue after high school, and why? Why have you selected to go into that particular field? And I see that there are two people on one of the calls, and that's helpful. Thank you that Sheila and Victoria, I believe, have called yourselves out separately. So I'm just going to go down my list here on the screen. Laurel, would you like to go first?
Yes, I will. Hello, my name is Laurel Adams. My field of study, I am currently a junior, and I'm not sure yet. I'm thinking maybe music, because I love music and I love writing music. And I'm also thinking maybe medicine because I'm really interested in science, and this year I'm taking anatomy and physiology, and I like it a lot. So yeah.
So fun story, I was actually pre-med when I started, and it was anatomy and physiology that kind of drew me into that. And then I wandered into other sciences from there. So when you have that field and area, it's important that you have a pretty good idea of the space that you want to be in, because you will follow a very interesting path as you go through your life and figure out what the specifics are. Thank you, Laurel. Sheila, would you like to go next?
Actually, just Victoria is going to talk. Sorry.
Okay, great.
But hi, my name is Victoria. I'm also a junior, and I'm currently thinking of doing environmental engineering. I want to do environmental engineering because I really enjoy stuff with the environment. I've also taken some math courses at the college, UW Madison, and I've learned that I really enjoy applied math. So I would like to do stuff with that in engineering.
Fabulous. I accidentally minored in math in my undergrad, and that was one of the requirements that got me accepted into my engineering master's when I figured out that that was actually what I wanted to do many years later. So applied math is really kind of one of my little fun things to do.
Oh, nice.
Okay, next, and I am going to ask how to pronounce it. Is it Tao?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, Tao.
So I don't know.
Okay.
Go ahead. Do you want me to tell her, or do you want to?
I'll go ahead and do that. My daughter's actually in a track meet right now. We're from California.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in on her behalf. But she is a junior, and she's interested in like either my biological sciences or microbiology. She's pretty much open to anything related to biological sciences. So anything related to that, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going to try the next name. Is it Rainey?
Yeah. My name is Rainey. I'm planning to major in either biology or chemistry, mostly because I like science and lab type stuff. And I'm currently going into my junior year of high school.
Wonderful. Okay, so I have 3 current juniors because school years are kind of starting to wrap up. 3 current juniors and 1 current sophomore coming.
So Cassie, there's a Girl Scout troop on board that also has 1 girl listening in. I don't know if you see that screen.
No, I don't.
So would the young lady from the Girl Scout troop like to speak?
Sure. I'm Liliana. I'm a junior as well. And I guess I want to go into art.
Okay.
But in fine arts, maybe illustration. I do mostly portraiture, but I also like to do biological studies. So I'm taking a genetics and forensics class now, and I'm going to take anatomy and physiology next year. So kind of like if there was inside the art, it would be that focus.
Okay. Okay. So you may be doing some, maybe some crime scene drawings and things like that in the future.
Yeah. When I put my portfolio together, it kind of had a vibe. So
okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So all of you have got lots of time, and I'm really excited that you're thinking about these things now. You've got the summer ahead of you, and are going to be able to work on some of these things. Okay, so I've got some notes here about each of you just to trigger my memory as we kind of walk through this. So here we go. The top 4 reasons why students don't get scholarships. Oddly enough, one of the biggest things that I see is the low number of scholarships that we actually get, or the low number of applications that we actually get. Just about a month ago, we did the Society of Women Engineers Wisconsin chapter. I know I broadcast it out to several of the high schools. You guys would be too early to have applied for this one, but it's one to think about next year because a lot of you are thinking in those sciences things. We had 6 applicants statewide, and that is at the incoming freshman level, as well as at the currently enrolled at any level, all the way up through PhD. And it was not due to lack of broadcasting. There is a Society of Women Engineers chapter in every university that has an engineering program within the state that is heavily involved. With the national scholarship, we can submit how many applicants we're willing to take on, so that the scholarship judges, if you have less time to commit, you're not dealing with 30 or 50 applicants. I have put in for 30 applicants every time that I have done that judging, and I've never received more than 15. So there are a lot of scholarships out there that we're just not getting a huge pool of applicants for. Now, one of the reasons why I think that we don't get a lot of the applicants is because people don't know about them. A lot of the communities have scholarships, they come through the schools and things like that, but making sure that you're looking into your youth organizations, professional organizations. If you are looking at biology and chemistry, there are professional organizations for both of every profession that you can imagine going into has a professional organization that will guarantee you that there are local and national scholarships in almost every one of those organizations. That is really one of the mission statements of the professional organizations, is to draw and attract new members to that field. Also, the professional organizations of anything that your parents are involved in. There's a lot of student scholarships for people within those things. And then look at different foundations for missions of the scholarships. So I think that that's the secondary reason why students aren't applying for as many scholarships. The primary reason, and really what I hear when I talk to people in the Women in STEM mentee groups, is the applications take too much effort to fill out. They've got busy schedules, they're carrying heavy course loads, they're in sports and different activities, and they just don't have the time. And so what happens is they look at every scholarship individually and sit down, and it's an overwhelming task before them to go through a stack of scholarship applications. The way to work through that is to build yourself I call it a scholarship portfolio, where you sit down and we're going to walk through a lot of the information and a lot of the questions that you want to have captured into this portfolio as we go through our content this evening. But really what you want to do is not think about any particular application, but think about what it is that is your overall content. Get that all down in one place, so that when you do go to the scholarship applications, you are then looking at the individual application and selecting your information from the menu that you have already created. You've already done all of the hard work. You've collected everything in one place, and you can get those applications filled out more quickly. Even the essays, if you have all of your background information gathered and collected in one place, you should be able to get to those essay prompts fairly quickly, and you'll become very efficient at writing good scholarship essays. And the more applications you fill out, the faster that you will get at them, right? So the first 2, 3, 5 will take a little bit longer, and then you'll have your rhythm, and the rest of them will go much more quickly. Cheryl, are you seeing a question? You're on mute, ma'am.
The scholarship that you were talking about that you don't seem to get a lot of applications, and or some of the other ones that you talked about in generalities, do you have any recommendations on where people can look for those? I mean, the specific question is what was the name of that one scholarship? But I think the broader question is how do you even find those scholarships?
So one of the challenges is that the scholarship committees will put effort into getting things out there. But if you know what your field is that you want to go into, Google professional organization around that field, right? Professional organizations for biology, for chemistry, and you'll come up with some of those. If you're struggling with that, reach out and I can kind of help you through those Googles. But if you're also not sure what the professional organizations are, you can reach out to some of the schools that you're looking to apply to, because most organizations will have a collegiate membership. And so the school that you're applying to, if they're feeding into that area, like the dean or the advisor for that particular school. I know like at UW-Madison, you're dealing with a lot of people. Whoever that advisor group is that you're coming into is going to be able to give you the names of the professional organizations. And once you get onto their websites, I mean, if you Google Society of Women Engineers Scholarship, it comes up great big and it says this is how many days you have to get your application in.
And then Tao's mom made a comment about many scholarships are financial needs based, so it makes tough for some families who barely fall above the threshold.
Right.
And on the flip side, I would say, and a lot of them are also academic based. And so if you're not a strong academic student, you're not eligible for some. And there are a lot of students that fall in between those two sections. So any feedback, thoughts on that?
If you are falling into that bucket, quantity is going to be your friend. And that's why you really want to have that scholarship portfolio built up, because it is going to be tougher for you to, if the rubric on that scholarship is based on the financial need, or you must be over a certain grade point average, it is going to be a little bit tougher. So you're just going to want to apply to more scholarships and get good at it. And that's really what the point of tonight is getting good at it so that you can get the numbers on your side. Now, the other thing to remember when they're talking about grades and finances and things, there's two ways that the committees look at it. Some of them are, if you don't meet this minimum requirement, you don't qualify. I see a lot less of that and more of it's just one aspect of the scholarship scoring. So we're going to get into how the scholarships are scored in a little bit. But there is rarely one particular aspect that is going to take you all the way over. It's about the whole picture and everything that you present. Was that helpful? Okay, perfect. So number 2, believe it or not, is poor spelling, grammar, and overall readability. It's really surprising that we have to struggle through reading some of these essays because sometimes they just don't make sense. When you're reading through them, the spelling and grammar can get very distracting. Grammarly is a free program that you can load onto your computer. I have it on mine. It will rate your information for, are you trying to be persuasive? Are you being clear? It will recommend, maybe this way is a little bit simpler to say it. We're not looking for $20 words in these essays. We're looking for your overall message. I have seen where it really looks like people got out the thesaurus and just used every big word that they possibly could. That's really going to draw away from your clarity. You want to be you want to be colorful, you want to be interesting, you don't want to be redundant in your verbiage, but yet at the same time, you don't want to use these words that people go, wow, I'm not even exactly sure what that means. So, you know, that is, it seems like a simple enough barrier and hurdle to get over, with having things being clear and well presented. But you would truly be surprised how often we see that not be the case. So, you know, those first two are fairly simple. The third one is really just knowing what your message is. I've heard some really interesting scholarship prompts, and we're going to talk about that with the essays and things. But really, the essay is your opportunity to tell your story and your message. And the key thing there is making your message fit into that prompt. So know what your message is and know how it applies to that particular scholarship committee. So with that, we're, you know, especially if you're trying to put out 20 scholarship applications, we're not saying that you need to do in-depth research on each and every organization, but every organization has probably just a simple mission statement, or, you know, a one key thing that you can take away from their website that's really going to help you to align your message to their message, and that's really going to be impactful. So knowing what that message of yours is, your personal statement is going to be key, and we're going to talk about that a lot this evening. But, you know, when you talk to a lot of students in high school, they'll say things like, you know, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an environmental engineer. And that's fabulous that you have the indication of what you want to be. But if you can reach down into yourself and come up with a personal statement that is along the lines of, I will do what, for who, because, and be able to fill that out and flesh that out and have a little bit better understanding of what that looks like, it's going to be really valuable to you in building what that message is that you want to share with your audience. The other thing is going through your accomplishments and, you know, making sure that you have that list of all of your accomplishments. What have you done? And how does that align to your personal statement? And how might that align to different organizations' missions? And we'll talk a lot more about that. But having all of that documented down in one place before you even sit down to write your scholarship applications is going to be really helpful to you. And then the fourth thing, and this is probably the most challenging, right? So the barriers do get a little bit higher as you go on, but what you're looking for is to float yourself up to the top of that list. They don't demonstrate their passion. So when I was looking for, you know, talking with your introductions, I heard sparks in some of the voices where it's like, okay, they're really excited about that. When I'm talking with students, you can hear someone's face light up when they're talking about something that they're excited about. That's really what you want to capture on that piece of paper. And it does come through in the reading of it. So the easiest way to do is to read that out loud by yourself. And do you have excitement in your voice when you're reading it? Does your face light up? Have someone kind of watch that. And if you've got that, that's going to come through on that piece of paper. If you don't, then that passion's not going to show up. And it's going to be felt by the scholarship committee. So any other questions on the top 4 reasons before we delve into more detail on how to get through these hurdles? Okay, the master silence of the Zoom meeting. So has anybody, and I might be able to see your hands raised, I hope, if you can raise your hands for me. Has anybody heard about the 5 whys? Okay, the 5 whys is used a lot a lot in sciences. So any of you, almost all of you, are looking at some form of science. So you'll be introduced to it along your path. You start by asking a question, just like you did when you were a kid. I don't know if anybody has ever seen a small child who's sitting in the back seat of the car, on a family drive saying, why? And their parents will answer a question and then why? And they just keep asking why. It's that natural curiosity that children have. How this comes in with your personal statement. And Laurel, I'm going to ask you to help me out with this one, if you're okay with that, because you gave me the first why that I wrote down on my paper. So Laurel, you said you're interested in music because you love writing music. Why do you love writing music?
Because I think writing music gives me the space to capture things that I feel and things that I see, and gives me an opportunity to help other people feel things and see things.
And why is that important to you? Why do you want to help other people to see and feel things?
Because I think sometimes, especially today, we don't take enough time to process our emotions and look around us and just be present. And I want to help people do that.
And why is being present important?
Because our lives are so short, and it just seems a shame to waste it by not experiencing everything around you.
Okay, now I'm not going to ask you why lives are so short. So we kind of got to a natural stopping point there, right? There's that way. The other piece is really, you can feel, I felt more definitiveness in your voice when you said that. So it's like a deeper understanding. You're like, yeah, this is why, because you don't want to not be present in your life, and music can help you to connect with all of those things that are going on around you. That's one way of knowing you've hit your why. The other one that I see a lot is when the face lights up. They get excited. With you, I felt more definitiveness. Like this is really my why. So would you be able to take that, Laurel, then, and make it into a statement that says, I will do what, for, who, because?
I will write music for the people around me because I want to help them experience their lives and process their emotions more fully and more effectively.
Very good. Very good. Now, I know that's just one of your choices, right? You'd have to work through that in the medical one as well, because your whys for doing that are going to be very different. And a lot of times you have those two very different tracks that, and one becomes a passion and something that you can kind of pursue on the side, and it gives you peace and balance. And the other one, maybe you become a musician who's an EMT, right? Maybe you become a doctor who does some things on the side with music. Sometimes they blend together, like Liliana was talking about art and illustrations and the medical piece and really how all of that can play together as well. Cheryl, you raised your hand.
No, I was clapping for Laurel.
Okay, thank you. It looked like a hand raise. I'm used to seeing this for the claps. I spend more time in Teams than Zoom. Okay, does anybody else want to take a shot at a personal statement? Don't be shy. We're all in this together. Okay, now what I also want to talk about a little bit is the fact that for some of you, there's, that like with Laura, we talked maybe music, maybe medicine. I maybe want to do something in the biology area. So you may not have, I would have never in a million years ago when I was in high school imagined that I was going to be an industrial engineer working in an automation company. Okay. I started out, like I mentioned, pre-med, and then became a chemist and did research and development and process chemistry. And along the way, 20 years later, went, oh, wait a minute, whoops, I'm an engineer, right? But I was in the sciences and in the right place. So what you need to do is capture what is your personal statement today. This is not going to be the same personal statement that you have 20 years from now, 5 years from now, possibly, right? I did not graduate pre-med. I graduated with a chemistry degree. My personal statement changed in the 3 years that I spent in college. So what you're looking to capture is your personal story today. And it's going to get you started on a path. And that path is going to take you to the road that you and only you belong on. Nobody else belongs on your road. It's kind of one of those solo things. You get to talk to the people in the car beside you as you have spouses and families and friends and everything. But really, you're the only one that gets to walk on your path. So what you're doing is you're taking that first step onto that path now in defining that personal statement. And that next step is going to evolve that personal statement a little bit. And the next step after that is going to evolve it a little bit. And 20, 30 years from now, your personal statement is going to look very, very different. But this is the one that gets you started walking down the path. So take some time to really think about not just what do you want to do, but make sure you have a good understanding in your own mind as to why and how you want to do that. So the with who, or for who, sorry, the for who, environmental engineering. What population do you want to service? Is that something that you think you want to do in a city? Is that something that you think you want to do in an underserved population? I actually know someone who does industrial engineering for the Navajo Nation as far as making sure that they are protecting their lands at the same time that they are moving their culture forward and that they are working with industries to help support their population and all of that. So who is that you want to work with is also an important understanding that's going to kind of help you drive down that path a little bit more clearly. And again, that's going to evolve and change too. But what's your personal statement now? Okay. One more shot for a volunteer, somebody that wants to kind of work through their personal statement with me. Otherwise, does anybody have any questions on writing your personal statement? Okay. Now, how are scholarships evaluated? Does everybody here know what a rubric is from school? Okay. I got a nod and I'm going with silence, and typically silence on a Zoom call means agreement. So that's what I'm going to take. Every scholarship is going to have a rubric, and the scholarship committee is going to judge those scholarships against that rubric. That's all defined before the applications are received. But the student typically has limited, if any, visibility to what that rubric is. I know that, with the one committee that we are on, we actually found it necessary to put right into the scholarship application, you will be graded on grammar and spelling, which felt very strange to me. I thought that should be an assumed, but literally the situation with the applications we were getting were so poor that we felt we had to call that out, oddly enough. You may see things like this is based on financial need. What is your financial documentation that you have filled out for school? You may see some that say that, it's based on, you have to have a 3.0 or higher to apply. That's possible. But in more cases than not, it will be just one aspect of it. So the rubric will look at things like, and say, okay, for a total of 10 points, rate your student on this particular classification. They fall into these buckets that I have listed here: activities, community service, work experience, the essay, your references, and then an overall representation of you. And each one of those is typically worth a total of X number of points, and it will call out, for example, activities. It will say 1 to 3 activities is worth 2 points. 4 to 8 activities is worth 4 points. 8 or more activities is worth 6 points. Okay. So it's really, really clear how those are going to be called out. They may also be looking for details within each of those aspects. So for example, with work experience, and one of the key things that the Society of Women Engineers calls out is, are you actively working to contribute toward the cost of your education? Because if you're putting in the work and the effort, we're going to help you more so than if you're not. And so the question is written to try to get you to say, how many hours do you work at that particular job? Is this a full-time job that you work all year round, or is this a seasonal job? And the scoring is different for each of those, to the point where if you're working a full-time job year round, that's worth more points. If you're working full-time during the summer, that's worth less points. And then the lowest is just a part-time job, throughout the year. So when you are giving the information about these different activities, look to be able to give as much detail as possible. So we'll walk through each one of these. With your activities, one of the things that I see on rubrics a lot is the number of activities. Now, again, if you're involved in 50 different activities, there's a cap where that's really not going to help you anymore, right? So you don't want to list out every single activity that you've ever done if it's an exhaustive list, but think about which ones apply to that particular organization. If you are applying to the American Vet Association's scholarship, right? An activity that was around, maybe you with your work experience, you volunteered at the Humane Society every week throughout high school. That's going to be more valuable than the fact that you were on the basketball team. Okay, so making sure that you're focusing the information to what's important if you feel like you've got a really big list of things. So number of activities, leadership within that activity, captain of the basketball team, the student and body president, those types of things, anything that's going to have that leadership in there. Initiative. Now, really simple, what initiative means is, was this something that you created? Okay. So for example, if your school did not have a first robotics club and you and a couple of your friends started the first robotics club, that's a whole lot different than I was a member and president of the first robotics club, right? So look for opportunities to bring that information in. It may be on your activity list. It may be in your essay. So when you're putting together your portfolio, what you're also looking for is you're listing out all of these activities are little nuggets that could turn into an essay. Okay. What type of leadership did you have in that activity, and how did that impact you? What did you learn from that? What kind of challenges did you have as a leader in that organization, and how did you overcome it? So thinking about all of those aspects, and again, you're just jotting things down, right? But these are going to be the nuggets that you're going to grab from later on and turn these things into essays. Activities that align with your field of study should always be first thing on the list, okay? I mentioned that I was pre-med. I had over 1,000 hours of volunteer service at the Viroqua Hospital. And for those of you who have no idea where Viroqua is, it's about 3,000 people I think at that time, maybe it had 10 or 15 beds. But through high school, I had 1,000 hours of volunteer service at that organization. That was the first activity that went up on my list because I was going after pre-med, right? So making sure that you've got that alignment in there, or that you can kind of come up with some sort of alignment to that, right? What, as a member of the basketball team, is going to help you in your field? What did you learn as for leadership, right? What did you have an occurrence where, you know, the team was really struggling and you did something to pull them out of it? What is it about that that's going to align? Okay, so that you're not just writing down, I was on the basketball team 2018 to 2020. I was in Girl Scouts for 2 years. Make sure you're capturing all of the important details of those. Similarly, for community service, one thing about community service that I see a lot is they're going to look at, was this something that you did on a regular basis, or was this like a big event? I coordinated the dance-a-thon. I put on this event and was active in this one event once a year. Was it something that you did every year? That sort of thing. Again, leadership initiative. Was this, again, something that you created, something that you started, that alignment with the field of study? And in both of these, write down who that you interacted with these things that would be a good person for a reference. Maybe it's your basketball coach. Maybe it's your adult mentor that helped you on this community service project. Maybe it's the principal who was the advisor for your student body government group that you were involved in. Make sure you're capturing those names of who would be a good reference to support the information that you're providing here. Work experience, we've already talked about, being able to contribute to those financial expenses that come with college, full or part-time, year-round or seasonal, that alignment to the field of study. I am so passionate about history, and I worked at McDonald's. There's a mismatch there. There was probably something, if you couldn't get a job at the local historical society, cool, were you volunteering there, right? Does that align and really show that that's what you really, that space that you really want to be in? And again, you guys are juniors in high school, right? And you're taking that first step down the path. Being in that space that aligns with that field of study is really super important, because you might learn that that's not the space that you want to be in. And finding that out as a junior in high school versus a 35-year-old is really super valuable, right? So getting yourself in that experience is not only going to be important for you, but it's also going to demonstrate that I've been in this space, I understand what this space is about, and I know I want to be there. The essay, we talked about spelling, grammar, clarity, alignment to the essay prompt. The most interesting essay prompt that I heard recently was a local grocery store, and this is a local one. And the essay prompt was, tell us 3 challenges in the grocery industry today. We're going to talk about how to answer that kind of question with your message, because the essay is about you, and you can take some of these crazy prompts that are coming out of left field, and you can still tell your story to them. References. You want to make sure that the information provided by your reference is going to reinforce the information that you've already provided. So I have seen an essay come through. I'm passionate about being an engineer. I've always wanted to be an engineer. And when I was a kid, I developed this automatic egg collector for my chicken coop. And that's how I knew that I wanted to be an engineer. And the reference is the piano teacher. Now, that piano teacher had a lot of nice things to say, but the high school science teacher would have been much more valuable in that space. Now, with Liliana, with art and illustration, that art teacher is going to be a more appropriate reference, again, than the science teacher. So making sure that you're looking at, is it reinforcing my message? And does it really kind of align with what I want to do? Does it reinforce the fact that I'm in that space and exploring that space and the things that I'm learning about? If you have, where you are wanting to be, in that medical field, but for some reason, that particular prompt, that particular message that you had was drawing on a story that you wanted to tell about an experience from the basketball team, well, then the basketball coach is a really good reference there, because they're going to reinforce that message in that essay that you gave. Does that make sense?
I have a question, Cassie.
Yeah.
So if you have a reference that we'll just take Liliana's example of the science teacher versus the art teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably a little bit harder of an example, but let's just say it. And let's say that the science teacher is actually, let's say she did some art project under her science class. Okay.
Yeah.
So we did a STEAM project, not just
Yep.
a STEM project, right?
Yep.
And so she lists the science teacher. How can she notate that connection?
Okay. And we're going to talk about this. So I'll just tell you now, and then we'll reinforce it a little bit later. You want to give the person who you're asking for a reference a copy of the application that you are filling out, preferably already filled out. And if you've got to have an essay for that one, give them your essay, even if it's just the rough draft at that point. Make sure that they know what your message is, and ask them to help you to reinforce that message, right? So that's going to help to get that alignment. If your essay is about that STEAM project where you drew on your passion for art and for science and pulled that together, and you're talking about that project, that reference, if they know that's what they're talking to, they're going to talk to that as well and give their perspective on that. Does that make sense? I ask that a lot, and I've said for many years that needs to be my particular swear jar, that every time I ask if something makes sense, I need to put $1 in. I haven't broke myself of it yet, but I'm working on it.
So it's funny you guys are talking about reference letters. So I had to ask 2 core teachers for
Mhm.
references, and so I did. And then obviously I wanted to ask my art teacher. And I guess she broke protocol and she sent it to me and my mom.
Ahead of time without submitting it direct.
Right. And
Yes.
the problem is, this is really hard to say, and this is being recorded, but she's not a strong writer.
Yes.
She is a fabulous person and a great mentor, but
Mhm.
not a strong writer. She even misspelled my last name, which is pretty simple. So I didn't want to hurt her feelings. And now knowing that we kind of broke protocol and she sent it to me, I asked someone, my mom asked someone in
Mhm.
guidance on my behalf, if she could look at it and then input it into Naviance or whatever system, College Board. But what happens when I'm asking for particular letters now? I mean, that's going to reflect on me, right?
So what do you mean when you're asking for particular letters?
Like for scholarships, for if I'm asking her to tailor different, references for me, I have a feeling that since she's not a strong writer, it's gonna reflect on me.
Yeah. Okay. Completely got it. So you're thinking that she's possibly knows you the best and can reinforce your message the best, but you're concerned about the way that that's going to come through and how it might reflect. And it can be if really the reference scoring, we're not looking for grammar, that's terrible. Grammar and clarity. So next time I say that, it's a compound word now. We'll put it in the dictionary, grammar, right? we're typically not looking for grammar and clarity from those references. We're more so looking for that reinforcement of the message and the passion. But that is not to say that it is not going to be a subconscious piece. So you're really going to have to weigh out what other references that you could possibly use, and make that decision if you think that it's really misspelling your name, that's pretty tough.
She caught that part, but
Okay.
and then she said, but like she didn't say feedback, but she said, if there's anything else you want me to add, but I couldn't say, could we have an English teacher look at this? I don't know what I was supposed to say. I wish and this literally happened this week.
Sure.
And my mom didn't know what to do and I didn't know what to do. So we, I don't know. It's just, the letter started out, "Dear to whom it may concern." It was just really weird.
Yeah. So go ahead, Cheryl, you got a thought.
Yeah, sorry, I have a thought on this. So when I get asked for references, I actually ask the student to draft something to share with me, because then it makes it easy for me as the reference writer, but also then I know that I am following, I can edit it, but then I'm following it. And if you give her I'm guessing that she recognizes she might not be the best writer. And if you give her a template, then she might just use your template and go with it.
What I think it is, because she didn't even put it on letterhead like my other teachers have in the past for things that I've applied for. I think because this is her first year teaching at high school, she was a middle school teacher. But then part of me wants to go back to my old art teacher that had me for the first 2 years, but she's retired. So does that?
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. They were a person who was important in your life, has a perspective on you. Just because they're retired doesn't mean that they're not valuable in that perspective. So that I think that would be one really, really good avenue. Another may be depending upon what your family's relationship with the school is, just a conversation with the guidance counselor, because I think you were being really, really perceptive that this person just hasn't had this experience and hasn't been asked to do this in the past. And the guidance counselor, may be able to, do something along the lines of helping to develop that skill with her. So that may be another avenue to go with someone trusted within the school to help her to get that support to develop that. But I would, my first line of approach with this, if I were you, would be your previous art teacher.
She's such a sweet person, and I feel terrible telling you guys this stuff.
No, but here's the thing. We all have things that we're good at. We all have things that we're not good at. I will not even begin with my list, but my family would tell you it's long. Okay. And there's just some things that I've never done that I'm not going to do well the first couple of times. So that's part of just the human development. And really, I think if you, and this is entirely up to you and your comfort level and exactly what you want to do, but I think it would be beneficial for her to have that feedback so that in the future she becomes more comfortable, because she's going to get more of these requests moving forward. So helping someone to develop past where they are, you should never feel bad about. You can do it in a way that makes that person feel bad, and that's never good. But if you approach it, with the perspective of it's okay, it's really okay to not know how to do everything, and you know, you, like I said, you can just move on to the other art teacher. You can move on to the other art teacher and mention it to a guidance counselor. There's a lot of ways to approach that.
Thanks. Sorry.
That's okay.
I have another question kind of along those lines too. So I have a similar situation. There's a person who would be so good for me to have a reference from, but they lack the, I guess it's again, it would be like the errors, just like grammatical things and, you know, just things that I just wish, I mean, can I proofread that myself or does it have to be sent straight in?
It depends on the scholarship.
Okay.
It depends on the scholarship. Now, in some cases, they just want a name and address or name and telephone number so that they can just reach out and say, hey, this is all the great stuff that we see about student ABC.
Okay.
Does that sound right to you? And you know, they're only going to get contacted if you're at the top of the list, right? So if it's that type of thing, you've got less worry, you know, are they going to just be able to say in a telephone conversation, yeah, Laurel's great. Well, great. Then that's the person that you need. They may have to submit it directly to the organization and you may not be allowed to see it. So there is that faith and trust that you need to have in your reference, right? And it also depends on how comfortable you are with that reference. Because if you know them really well and you're really comfortable with them, then you could say something like, hey, here's my essay. This is, and maybe a template like Cheryl recommended. And the English teacher is helping me to review all of my documents before they go in. Would you be okay if she took a look at your letter of reference too, right? So that may be one way that you're kind of bringing them along and saying, you know what, this is really important to me. And I've got to make sure that all of my I's are crossed and my T's are dotted. And I'm worried about my I's and T's. Can your I's and T's get checked too?
Yeah.
So that might be one way to do it also.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Great discussion. I'm glad you guys are getting chatty. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll jump on to kind of the overall. Okay, so some of these rubrics are going to look at each one of these things completely independently. I've actually seen where the essay is graded by one person and another person looks at all the activities and community services. It's really kind of strange, but I have seen that. Most cases, your application is looked at holistically. And sometimes with that, they will be looking for an overall type situation. They're looking for that passion and dedication to that field of study. Why is it that you're wanting to do that? Why is this important to you? Do we believe that if you get this scholarship and you go into this field of study that you're truly going to pursue it and this is where you're headed, right? Because you know, everybody wants, if I'm the American Medical Association, I want that money to go to somebody that's really going to become a doctor, not somebody who's going to veer off and become a chemist, right? So they're looking for that nugget. They're looking for alignment to that mission. If it's, I don't know, Greenpeace that's giving a scholarship, right? Are you aligning in some way to what that mission is? The local telephone cooperative, you know, their mission may be about serving the community in such a way, right? So are you talking about serving the community with that? They're looking for that alignment to whatever that mission is. And then also overcoming adversity. And this is a tough one because, again, just like grades and like financial situations, it can feel like I'm at a disadvantage because I grew up in a two-parent home and all of my parents were present, and I had you know, we didn't move every year because my family wasn't in the military and I didn't have a childhood disease. But everybody overcomes something. It could be a fear of public speaking, and that breakthrough was important for you. It could be, you know, it could be bullying. It could be dyslexia. It could be, I really, really struggled with math, and boy, this was hard. And I got a tutor, and now it makes sense to me. And now I'm loving applied math, and I know I want to do something in the math field. But in third grade, I failed math, right? So it doesn't have to be, you know, some sort of earth-shattering difficulty that you have overcome. Everybody's got an adversity that was there somewhere. So again, you don't necessarily, it may not fit into that personal message that you're trying to convey in that particular space. But if you do have something that fits in there, it's okay to say it. Okay. All right. So the essay, it's really not as hard as you think. So I gave the example about the grocery store, and the essay prompt that was, what are the 3 most challenging things in the grocery industry today? That scholarship committee is not really looking for you to know and go out and do a research paper on what are the 3 most challenging things in the grocery industry today, right? There is no right answer. This is your space to tell your story. They're looking for you to be able to demonstrate critical thinking skills and how well can you communicate. So what you want to be thinking about, you've got this essay prompt, and maybe it's a straightforward one. Maybe it's something along the lines of, you know, why do you want to be an engineer? One of the ones that one of the committees I was on this last spring used was, how has COVID and the response to COVID impacted your decision about your field of choice? And how has your field of choice changed because of the COVID pandemic, right? So we think about things like, you know, environmental engineering. Boy, there's a lot of things that have been changed in environmental engineering as it applies to, you know, social health, right? And now we have to think about buses being designed to have capacities that allow people to have more personal space in order to reduce exposure to things. We think about in medicine, now we're dealing with telehealth and things that we thought, you know, it was all possible before, but we really hadn't embraced it. Now we're embracing it. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of pull those things in. So usually they're things where you can talk about you more directly. But really what you want to capture in your essay, and I've got the little graphic here, you want to make sure that you're bringing in your personal statement. You really want to make sure that you're touching on that organization's mission, your unique experience, and the essay prompt, and bring all 4 of those things together into an essay. Now, that's why we talked so much on that previous slide about capturing everything that you possibly can in those 6 areas, so that when you look at it and you say, okay, here's my essay prompt. And here's the organization's mission. Here's something from my experiences that I think fits in with this essay prompt and this mission, this organization's mission, that I can turn into an essay. Okay. So the first thing that you want to do is research your organization. Again, you're not writing a research paper. You're going to Google them, and you're going to find something on their website that is a key takeaway. When I applied for my job at Rockwell Automation has 22,000 employees worldwide. We function in 60 different languages. In every market imaginable, we have an impact. Their website is huge. I've worked there for 7 years. I still have not even scratched the surface of it. However, in really big letters up in the corner, it said, listen, think, solve. That was it. I grabbed a hold of that little nugget and I pulled that into my interview. They knew I had learned something about them and was had taken the time to do the research, right? So you don't need to spend a ton of time and detailed understanding of this organization. And it was started in 1812 by a nurse in Uruguay, and this is what they did for the first one. You don't need all of that. You need one little nugget that speaks to you on their website that you're going to pull in. Okay, so that's the first thing that you want to do, so that you have an idea of what it is that they're looking for. The second thing is to decide if you're going to answer the prompt directly or if you're going to deflect. Now, that grocery store example is a perfect example of where you're going to deflect. Nobody here did I see going into supply chain, transportation, or nutrition. Nobody on this list, right? But everybody could possibly be applying for this scholarship, right? So you could say something like, as a student who's going to be studying medicine, I'm not certain what the most, I don't know what the 3 biggest challenges are in the grocery industry. However, what the 3 biggest challenges in the medical field are this, this, and this. And I believe that they are because, and this is how I want to make an impact on those. Okay. So that is demonstrating your ability to take that question, digest it, and tell your story. Again, there's no right answers, right? They're not going to look at it and say, well, you didn't tell me what's wrong with the grocery industry. You were supposed to solve my problem today. You were supposed to tell me what's wrong with the grocery industry. What they're looking for is, what is it about you that makes you unique and special? And that's just a question that that aligns with who they are, that's going to help them to try to draw that out of you. Okay. Has anybody else seen any weird scholarship prompts out there that they want to talk about? Okay. The next thing, once you've decided I'm going to answer this direct or I'm going to twist this, now you do have to speak to the prompt. So you can't just ignore the prompt altogether. If you are deflecting, make sure you, in your introduction, speak to that prompt and how you are going to deflect away from that prompt. So that's an important piece. But then identify no more than 3 key points, depending upon how many words. If it's a 100-word essay, you don't have room for 3 points. You've got room for one important point. So make sure that even if it's a 2-page essay, you don't have room for more than 3 points. So identify what those 3 points are, again, that are aligning, and you're pulling on those points from your unique experiences and your personal statement, nodding to that organization's mission, and then you can sit down and write your essay. Any other thoughts or questions on the essay writing piece?
I don't have questions on the essay per se, but I am also on the highest awards committee with Cassie and for Badgerland Council. And I've seen a lot of gold award proposals, which not the same as a scholarship essay, but in a similar vein. Like, it's really helpful when they're telling us why they picked their project to give that personal story. So I just want to emphasize, Cassie is talking about the personal statement, but even like when you're answering these essays, and maybe I'm speaking ahead of your slides, Cassie, I'm sorry. But even when you're answering these essays, like if you have a specific story, like the one that Cassie said, the example she gave about the kid who created some sciencey thing when they were younger and that made them want to go into engineering. When you have specific stories like that, it grabs people's hearts more and they're going to remember it more.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Your unique experiences are really, really a key, right? This is your opportunity to float you to the top and really tell about yourself. In the other items where, what's your grade point average? What classes have you taken? What community service have you done? Those are snippets, right? This is really an opportunity for you to give that committee a full, high definition, in color picture of whatever view of you that you want to give them. Okay. And no, you didn't grab that, Cheryl. I appreciate your input very much. Okay. Now, a lot of people sweat about the essay, but like I said, if you got those little nuggets and you look at that personal mission, you're going to go, oh, wait a minute. Hey, that aligns to that. And I can speak to that because I had this experience in my life. You're not sitting down and racking your brain at every single essay, trying to figure out what it is that you're going to say. You're at McDonald's, you've got the menu on the wall, and you're putting together your particular pieces out of what you've got. By the way, guys, the same is true for resume writing. Every year, at least, you should sit down and like capture, here's 2 or 3 bullets of what I did this year and why that was important and who I did it for. And as you keep that through your career, I have changed industries more time than my mom wants to admit. She's completely confused and has no idea what I do, but I'm able to take each of those experiences then off the list and apply and say, you don't care about the fact that I did this. You care about the fact that I did this, and here's why it's important to you. So that's just a little resume writing nugget to keep in mind as you start into your career. You want to take and just have a great big long list of your accomplishments and grab them as you go. So there you go, a little precursor, maybe about 2 or 3 years early. So references. So we talked about this really in depth. So this might go fairly quickly because I think a lot of this we've already talked about. The best choice for your reference is the person who's associated with whatever that is, the story that you're talking about in your essay. Okay. So again, you may have a completely different ask of a reference for scholarship 1 than you do for scholarship 3, because that essay took you and you felt moved to talk about a different part of your story. And the first person that wrote that reference for the first application just isn't appropriate to that story. So that's one of the reasons why we talked about each of the things, the work experience, the activities, the community service, that you're making that list of references you go along, so that when you're pulling from each of those different things, you know who those are. If you do not have a person associated with that particular activity or event, the next best person is a person associated with the organization awarding the scholarship. If you are applying for a scholarship with an AMA, the American Medical Association, do you know someone who's in the American Medical Association who can write to your story as well as the mission of the organization? That's going to be really helpful. It's kind of like having when you apply for a job, when you submit that job application and you know somebody that works for the company and you call them up and you say, hey, I'm going to be submitting this job. Do you have any hints and tips for me? And would you mind putting in a word to the hiring manager? Just let them know that you know me. And if you have any questions, it's really very similar to that, having that reference being somebody associated with the organization. The third best choice is a person associated with that particular field of study. So again, like we talked about, Liliana, if you're going into art, you're probably not going to want to have your piano teacher giving that letter of reference. A couple of quick do's and don'ts. Please don't just ask a couple of people for letters of reference and just have them canned and ready to submit, because they're not going to speak to that particular story. With the do's, and there's a whole lot more do's than don'ts, so that's helpful, right? There's a lot more things you can do right here than you can do wrong. Talk to the person who you're asking to write the letter of reference, and there's a lot more to say in that conversation than, would you be my reference for this scholarship? You want to make sure that they know why you're selecting them, that they know what your message is. And there's some ways to do that. Make sure you give them a copy of that scholarship application, that they know the types of information not only are you being asked for, but that you're providing. That's really going to be helpful to them as well. Again, like Cheryl said, it's going to make that reference writing easier for them because they're, they may be getting asked to write references for 15 students at this time of year, and trying to keep track of what each activities are and all the different things that they want to talk to about each student can be challenging. So giving them that, they'll really appreciate it. Provide them some basic information about the organization that you're applying for. So again, you did that 15 minutes worth of research, share it with them so that they know what's important to that organization as well. Provide a draft of your essay. It's really about making sure that that reference understands what that message is that you're trying to convey so that they can reinforce that, and helping them to have that clarity. So any other questions about references from that perspective?
Yep, Victoria had a question.
Yep.
How much do they look at the grade you earn from a recommender's class? If I didn't earn as good of a grade in one class as others, should I hesitate to ask the one class teacher for a letter of recommendation?
The likelihood of them connecting those dots is very slim. If they do see your grade transcript, they're going to see the name of the class. And so unless the teacher calls out, I had this student in letter writing 101, and then they specifically take that transcript and they look up letter writing 101. But keep in mind also that this is something that they're doing on a Saturday afternoon in their free time, and they've got a stack of 20 applications that they're looking for. The likelihood of them taking the time to do that is not very good. Now, let's look at this from another perspective, and how can we spin this? We talked about adversity and overcoming adversity. So if that teacher, you got a poor grade in that teacher's class, and then, your story is about that and how you turned that around and you were able to make a breakthrough and drive through that challenge, and you didn't give up, and you were there making sure that you had all of your work done and complete and did everything that you could. And then the next year, you had that same teacher again and you got a stellar grade. Well, that's a great story to tell. If it goes in and aligns with that personal mission and your why, and that's, now I know that I want to go into this field, and I struggled with it at first. So realistically, depending upon what story it is that you're telling, that teacher may actually be of benefit to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so really this is, I promised you not death by PowerPoint. This is 7 slides, not a lot of bullets. I hope this was helpful to you. Let's just, I want to give you a couple more minutes for discussion if you have any more questions. Otherwise, I've got one more slide that just kind of covers some different topics that I'm passionate about, and some space that I'm working in, and my contact information. But before we go there, any other questions or thoughts, or you guys have got my full attention?
I have a question.
Sure.
So this is a really basic one, but what's the timeline like for most scholarship applications? Is that like something that I should be doing this summer, or is that like next fall?
Realistically, thinking about scholarships in your freshman and sophomore year is a really good, I know that's already gone, right?
Yeah.
Is a really good time to be thinking about, okay, I think I want to go into this particular field. Are there scholarships that are available to me? And that's a good time to do that research, to print out their scholarship applications, look at the types of questions that are being asked, because you can be building your resume through your high school years, right? For the things that Now you've seen these scholarship applications, you know the types of questions, you know the things that they're looking for. Now you've got 3 years to say, okay, I've only got so much time. I absolutely love playing basketball. I'm going to make sure that I play basketball. But you know what? I don't enjoy track so much. So I'm going to spend my time in a different way that aligns more with what I want to do. And it's, you know, when I was a kid, you know, I played basketball. Okay, cool. It was expected. I think Laurel's possibly laid eyes on me. I'm 6'2" and my brothers were 6'6" and 6'7". There was this expectation, right? I hated it. But it was something that I did because it was expected of me. And if I would have been thinking about, well, really, what is this going to do for me? Why am I here? I would have left that sport a lot sooner than my junior year. So, you know, thinking about, you know, how you're spending your time at that is really kind of the best that you can do kind of at that point, other than getting the list of when I get there, I'm going to apply for this scholarship, right? Some of them will take applicants as early as their freshman year. Those are rare. They really want to give that scholarship money out that next session. But the other thing that you can be learning is when's the deadlines, right? How am I going to kind of spread these out? Now that's a lot to think of. I just engineered scholarship writing, right? As an industrial engineer, I engineer everything. But if you kind of can take that approach early on, so like this year, your junior, I think it was Rainey that's coming in as a junior. So she's coming out of her sophomore year, looking at those associations, getting those lists, reading the applications. That's really kind of all you have to do. Making sure you're keeping your list, going back to this information as a freshman in high school. If you've got nothing more than a notebook where you are jotting these things down, you're going to be way ahead of the game. Okay. So really my message is it's not too early for any of you, but it's not too late for any of you either. But you do want to be paying attention to what the due dates are for scholarships. So for example, the upperclassmen one for Society of Engineers, that scholarship was awarded months ago. We're just taking the applications for the incoming freshmen now. The American Society of Quality, we've really kind of had some struggles with getting ourselves organized this year. We're going to be taking applications over the summer. So, you know, getting kind of that time frame in place for you is important too, so that you can prioritize. You don't want to just go, oh, hey, I found the scholarship, I'm going to apply for it. And, oh, after I'm done with that one, I'm going to go look for another one. If you've got, you know, where you sit down and you do like a blitz of, I'm looking for scholarships today. I'm going to spend 1 hour on the internet. I'm going to look for these scholarships and I'm going to write down all the ones that I'm going to apply and I'm going to write down their due dates. Now you can prioritize, right? But if you find a scholarship and apply for it and then go find the next scholarship and apply for it, by the time you find that third scholarship, that due date may already be passed, right? Whereas if you would have kind of started doing your research and got your list, then you would have known, oh, I've got to write this one before I write that one.
Right.
So that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
One other question.
Yes.
So with my situation where I don't know if I want to go into music or medicine at this point, and you know, you talk about these scholarships that are specific to the field of study. What happens if I apply for a scholarship that has to do with medicine and I decide I want to go into music?
So this is a very real personal story. I do not remember the name of the scholarship anymore. But when I went to Viterbo, it was, and still is, a very heavy nursing school. And you were only allowed to apply for this one particular scholarship if you were going into the medical field. That was the requirement, right? And if you left a major that was going to align with that, then you didn't get it moving forward. So if in your junior year you decided, I don't want to do medicine anymore, I'm going to become a teacher. Okay. They would have provided you that money through your sophomore year, and then you wouldn't receive it moving forward. I believe that scholarship still exists. It was a full ride scholarship. This particular scholarship had the application, it had the essay, and then on the day of my senior prom, my parents drove me down to La Crosse, and we were all, oh my God, I don't know how many hundred people applied for this scholarship. We were all put into this room. We had already provided our SAT scores, which is, another thing that's just one piece. We'd already provided our SAT scores. Mine weren't that great, by the way. And we took 4 hours of tests that were specific to this scholarship. And when you were done with that test, they rolled everything all together, combined it with the test scores, and a top percentage then went before an interview committee. And at the end of the day, one person got a full ride scholarship. 10 people got significant scholarships that banked on down. I walked out of there that day with, I think, $20,000 in scholarships. I was 4th or 5th. I went through many of the classes with the person who got the full ride scholarship. They did not complete the medical requirement and did not collect all of the money. But the only person who had the requirement to stay in the medical field was the person who got the full ride scholarship. When I switched to chemistry, I kept all of my money. So it's okay. That requirement may be there only for like the top echelon, and you may get 2nd or 3rd place in it, and you may still, and then that money came out of a different foundation, and cool. They really rewarded the kids who went through this grinder of a scholarship application. But so you may get to keep it if you change your mind and go another direction. You may not, but you got the benefit of that up to that point. And if not, if you're in that group like I was, I switched to chemistry, let the medical field go, and still had my scholarship. I just had to maintain, the grade point average and things. So every scholarship is going to be unique and different from that perspective.
So Cassie, I'm sorry, I just have to say this. So given that Viterbo is also a very strong music program, I think you may have just given Laurel school.
They do have a very strong music program.
So,
sorry, Laura.
By the way, for those of you who aren't from the area, Cheryl and I both also have degrees from Viterbo.
So I should still apply to scholarships for both of those areas then?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. And maybe your story is about, how you're making that selection. Maybe that story is all about that particular field. It depends on, what that prompt is and how it fits into you.
Mm-hmm.
And when she makes her portfolio, and I want to go back to the portfolio, but I want to make sure all the girls get their questions answered first. Should she, from what I'm hearing, she should almost have 3, one for music, one for medicine, and one for like an overlap.
I wouldn't necessarily do 3. I would put it all in one, because you may get wrapped around the axle of, oh my gosh, which portfolio does this belong on? Does this belong on my art portfolio? Does this belong on my medical portfolio? I would have one portfolio that speaks to all of it, that you look at and say, okay, I'm talking about music here, and this organization is interested in whatever it is. And oh, here's my nugget. Because otherwise you may go to that music portfolio looking specifically, and you may lose the right piece of information because you wrote it down in the wrong spot.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
So I haven't yet gotten my gold. My gold award is kind of stalled because of COVID. Is there a way to kind of spin that, since we're going into the season now and I don't have it yet?
You can talk about your project, and what that project is and why it's important to you. Adversity comes into play there, what you're doing to overcome the challenges with COVID, because nobody's life kind of popples around the path on a freshly paved road, right? There's pitfalls and cliffs on everybody's paths. How are you maneuvering through that? You can make that a part of your story.
Okay, thank you.
And I would love to see more gold awards. I will pick out an Eagle Scout and a gold award on a resume immediately. So I'd love to see that in more scholarship applications.
And Cassie and I, as we've mentioned, we're both on our highest awards committee. Cassie and I both feel very strongly about having the gold award on there, whether it's for a scholarship application, for a job application, and how a gold award project, like the different things that you learn, you know, so even if it's not for a scholarship, you know, we talk about when you're going into the job, the workforce, you know, think about don't think just about the project, think about the things within it. Like Cassie said, especially in your case, you know, the adversity, but, you know, think about the different skills that you learn, think about the communication skills that you've built up, think about all of those things, because the gold award is so much more than just the project. Sorry. And this is where you can see my passion come out.
I actually, one of my mentees at the university is an RA on the floor, and she called me up one day and she says, "I've got to do this bulletin board and it's career fair season, and what everybody was trying to figure out is, you know, how do you put work experience on your resume when you're going to these job fairs when we haven't had a real job yet? How do you do that?" And it was very, very similar to this conversation, right? Where you're taking your activities and your community service and what is it that's important to that employer? It's the same thought process of taking what it is that you have and making it important and relevant to the audience that you're talking to.
So Cassie, Tao's mom asked if you've read any applications that are both Golden Eagle Award applicants, and how does that weigh in points? And also the sensitivity of the girls going for both, because we know that that's a very sensitive issue right now, as this is new territory.
I have not seen that. And actually I see as linked in with Girl Scouts as the Society of Women Engineers is, it is astonishing to me that I've seen very, very few gold awards on the applicants. And it really kind of speaks to very similarly, you know, you've got these girls who are in high school and they're being pulled in all of these different directions, and you need to be on this team and you need to be on that team. And they just run out of time, right? And they don't understand the value in that. And I'm not necessarily saying that as a campaign for the gold award, more so as a campaign of you really do have limited time in high school. And if you have to choose between something that you want to do because it's just to hang out with your friends, or something that is going to feed that passion and get you into that space, make sure you are taking time to hang out with your friends, but maybe you don't have to join a team to do that. And you're going to take those other opportunities, because everybody gets 24 hours a day, no more. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you do not get more than 24 hours a day. And how you spend them, unfortunately in high school, is becoming more and more important.
And can I add to that, just on the specific topic of the sensitivity piece? Because with my podcast, I would love to have a Gold Award Eagle Scout on my podcast. But because that sensitivity part, I have I have not found one that I have felt, I cannot trust enough, right? Because it is such a sensitive thing. And if I have one of those crossover girls on my podcast, I want to make sure that we're talking more about comparing the two and having the real life experience of comparing the two. And so when I think about this in the thing of the scholarship essays, I think if you show both, like that's going to make somebody really sit up. And unless you get somebody who is really pro Girl Scout or really pro Boy Scout, I actually think all it's going to do is elevate the essay, because you're, even though within Girl Scouts it's very sensitive, outside I don't think that you're going to feel that sensitivity as directly.
No, and I agree with that completely, that sensitivity will be completely muted outside of the Girl Scout organization. And also, we as a human race are putting a lot more focus on diversity and inclusion and really the importance of that, and how, you know, making sure that the people in the room are different than you, so that you're bringing all of those different perspectives is so important, that I think the interaction between the Gold Award and the Eagle Scout from that perspective would be very valuable. Any other questions? So I do have, and if you can put this in the chat for me, I would really appreciate it. I have a 1-question survey for all of the participants here tonight. And that is, did you find this time that you spent here to be useful and helpful? Somewhat interesting.
Sorry, I just want to add, this is Cassie and her quality piece. And if you are a Gold Award Girl Scout in Badgerland Council, you know that she wants you to measure everything.
Yes, everything. So, but I'm not asking you to think too hard about this measurement, right? This is really as simple as it can get. Was it useful and helpful? Or was it just interesting? Or was it a waste of your time? Really, one of those 3 buckets. I'm hoping I fall clearly into one of those for you, and it's not a challenging question. While you're thinking about that, I am just really kind of getting started in this space as far as sharing this information out to others. This is the Scholarship 101 that we just worked our way through. I have some other content that I've not necessarily put into a full-fledged workshop yet, but I would like to. Someday when we can do face-to-face, or that we can really sit down, it's a much longer time, because I really want to sit down with groups of students and help them develop that portfolio, right? Where they're willing to sit down and say to me, okay, this is what I'm thinking about this activity. You know, what should I be putting into this portfolio? And I've got a lot of prompting questions and things to help you to develop that. I also do resume writing. It's a lot of similarity between what we just worked through and resume writing. I'm also willing to do one-on-one things. If you've got your scholarship portfolio, you've spent some time putting that together, and you want to sit with me for some time and to refine that. I'll also, you know, walk through a couple of scholarship applications with you. There's zero expectation that you should have somebody review 100% of your scholarships, but your first couple, find a trusted teacher, a trusted somebody that you've kind of shared this information with, to say, what do you think? Did I capture this, right? No different than, you know, if you're going to write a paper, you're going to do those rough drafts, and you may have somebody review it before you turn it in. I always have all of my presentations that are going to a vice president get looked over by somebody before I sit down, regardless of how well I know the content. So, that opportunity to get a couple of those looked at before you submit them, resume writing, interview practice, and early career coaching. So I was on a call 2 days ago as we prepare to bring over 200 interns into the company that I worked for just in the US. So that's just our US intern population. And my intern is starting on Monday. It was interesting how we were talking about the difference between the kids who are coming in, who have been coached, who know how to present their best self and still be their self. Because if you aren't careful, you can present somebody else and not yourself. And that's not something that you want to do on a daily basis. So you can tell the difference between the kids who have been coached and the kids who haven't. I can tell you from my background, my dad worked for the sheriff's department and was a farmer, and my mom worked at Walmart. I had no coaching coming in. And if I would have had that, I can see just the huge value in it. And so the company that I work for, we put a lot of effort into meeting the kids where they are, giving them that coaching and everything as they work through their internships with us. Hopefully they come in as a sophomore and work all the way through, and we get to keep them. Really, that's the goal. But not every kid has that opportunity. So regardless of who you find, I can't encourage you enough to find someone who is going to be that coach and mentor for you. A lot of people think I will figure it out as I go. It's going to be okay. I spent 5 hours on a person who's graduating from college here in the next couple of weeks. They spent 5 hours with me a couple of weeks ago working on their resume. And I said, I know the university that you're at has this service. Why didn't you go? She said, I don't know. Nobody does. We got this. It's okay. And I'm looking at a resume and I'm going, you did not have this. You really needed to spend that time. So don't try to go into a space that you've never been in before without trying to talk to somebody and understand and figure out how that goes. Build on the experiences and learnings of those who have gone before you, because that's going to propel you down that path to wherever it is that you want to go that much faster. And I'm not talking about climbing the corporate ladder. I'm talking about finding your space where you feel fulfilled and happy, and you have a passion that you get to live and work in every day. You don't have a job because the last thing that you want is a job. So in some way, shape, or form, I can't encourage you enough to find that support and guidance and assistance. And the moms that are on here, kudos to you. Help your child to find that space. My email is here if you do want to reach out and work towards some of this. I do have a little bit of a crazy, hectic life right now, but as Cheryl knows, I do find times and ways just to make everything fit. So if you do want to reach out, I encourage you to do that. And I thank you all for coming and spending your evening with us. And especially those of you who are all the way out in the West Coast, it's not even 6 o'clock yet. So you chunked into your Friday afternoon for us. So thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. If there aren't any questions, I'm going to stop recording.